Hey, it's Chris. We got an Apple event coming up. I'm excited. One of the things that's rumored to be announced is a new iPad Pro, which, if we're honest, is pretty overdue. The iPad Air came out and it kind of stole the thunder of the current iPad Pro. So it's time for a refresh. So you can see I got a mind map here in MindNote. I've been putting some effort into thinking about what I would really want the next iPad Pro to be and to do. I think this is an important discussion because the iPad Pro doesn't feel as pro as a lot of people wish that it did. Actually, the other day I sent out a tweet and I just took 30 seconds and right off the top of my brain rattled off a few things that I wish the next iPad Pro might have. Just moving the camera from the left side to the top. Right now there's one port on the side and that's it. And I talked about having maybe a built-in SD card reader. So I think there's some real low-hanging fruit that Apple could go after to improve the experience for hardcore iPad Pro users. Of course, more of what I actually want to get into in this video goes beyond just convenience and little upgrades to actually new functionality and enhanced performance, like real gains, not just incremental stuff. Of course, the bro, Matt Gonzalez, popped into the thread and he was like, Chris, for that list of stuff that you just put out there, it may just be easier to throw a touchscreen on a Mac rather than add those features to an iPad. And Matt's comment really got me thinking, is that what I really want from the iPad, just to turn it into a Mac? And I really don't think that's what I'm after. I think there are just certain things that you need a Pro machine to have, no matter what form factor it takes. Whether it's a tablet that can do Mac-like things because it has a keyboard and mouse support, or whether it's an actual Mac. There's just certain things that are considered pro that you need, which makes this a good time to just take a quick break and say thanks to our sponsor for even making this video possible. Paperlike. I've got one on the screen right now. My iPads never go without them these days because I love the way that they make writing or drawing with any Apple Pencil on any iPad feel really like you're writing or sketching on paper. And while I'm at it, I just have to mention, this is a great time to make sure that you're subscribed. The analytics show me that a lot of you watch just based on recommendations, but you haven't subscribed yet. Hit that subscribe button because I've got the iPad accessory to end all iPad accessories sitting up in my office. It's under embargo, but I'm just waiting to review it and it's gonna come out in a few days. All right, so let's continue our discussion. What is it about a Pro iPad that makes me or would make anybody want to use it over a MacBook Pro, which is an obvious comparison? Is it the portability? Is it the added functionality with the Apple Pencil? Is it the apps that are available? I think for me though, it really comes down to the form factor and again, the flexibility, the adaptability. The more I was thinking about it, I was thinking the MacBook Pro is just a MacBook Pro and that's all it can ever really be in its current state. But the iPad Pro can be very MacBook Pro-like now with the keyboard support, with the mouse and trackpad support, but it can also change and morph and become its own thing. So it's so much more adaptable. And that is its real strength. And that's why people are saying it's adaptable and it's fun. And here's where I hope somebody from the Apple team is maybe actually listening to this video. I wish that the changes that would come to the iPad Pro would make it the best machine for creating stuff, for creators, not just for people who consume stuff. And I'm talking about outside of the Apple Pencil. Obviously, it's one of a kind when it comes to sketching or handwritten notes. That's not what I'm talking about. So better screen, that's nice for consuming content. Faster processor, that's great for maybe gaming, and longer access to upgrades down through the years. But honestly, if you're just gonna consume content and if you're just gonna do some light typing and maybe some gaming, then the iPad Air is good enough. And just bumping up the screen specs, that doesn't really make this a pro machine. It makes it the best iPad that you can get in terms of specs, but it doesn't make it necessarily pro in a lot of people's minds. And I feel like that is where the frustration comes in for people when they look at the whole iPad lineup, and especially when you see how the iPad Air has progressed and caught up, and in some ways maybe just started to almost surpass. Like the iPad Pro needs to knock it out of the park, and not just with spec bumps. Like it needs to add differentiating features. I want to be able to take my actual entire workflow, put it on the iPad Pro and plow through my entire workflow without ever having to revert to a Mac if I don't want to. So I think like a lot of people have ended up feeling like the iPad Pro is just, the most pro iPad in name only. They call it the iPad Pro, therefore it's the Pro iPad. But really, I just feel like the name should really be the iPad Best because it's the best iPad in terms of specs, but it can't really do things that are more pro, really, than the iPad Air. So listen, this is what it comes down to for me. If the iPad Pro was really the most pro iPad, then I wouldn't have to use a hub to add in missing connectivity. If the iPad Pro was truly the most pro iPad and not just the best iPad you could buy, it would have a 4K top of the line camera on the front, the selfie camera. And it would be paired with some amazing studio quality mics that I rant and rave about and talk about how great they are in the Mac videos. I would love for this to be the one machine that I can pick up and take with me anywhere and actually produce things on it, whether it's a podcast or a video, without having to bring any other equipment with me. That would be pro. Importantly, if the iPad Pro was truly a pro iPad, not just the best iPad, then I wouldn't have to use a workaround like Shift Screen to be able to connect to an external display and actually do something there other than use Keynote. I know the Shift Screen developer has put a lot of time and effort into it. It's just not the actual experience that I want Apple to deliver. And if Apple's not going to give us external display support ever, then at least give us a bigger desktop-sized iPad. Something like the iPad version of the Surface Studio that's massive, that's touchable, that I can use the Apple Pencil on, that lets me view more apps at once, that lives on the desk, that doesn't have to be portable. I mean, for pro people, that could be a real viable option. I could see a lot of people wanting that. I tweeted about this. I said, give us a 27-inch iPad Pro. It's got 1,000 likes. It's not the worst idea in the world. So to summarize, if an iPad Pro were truly a pro iPad, I would never, ever have to fall back onto my Mac if I didn't want to. And there's a lot of comments swirling around it. They're like, well, Apple's not ever going to give that to you. It's not going to actually make the iPad able to replace the Mac because they don't want that. Apple, there's a conspiracy and they want you to buy as many things as possible. And I'm not going to say that I think that's true or that it's not. I don't want that to be true though. But this device is being held back right now, is my true feeling. Like, it's great, it's amazing. I do genuinely love it. I use it all the time. And I'm really excited to see what gets announced here shortly. But it feels like it could do so much more. All right, now the rumor mill has been active this year, of course. And I want to talk a little bit about whether or not some of the rumored features that are going to be coming to the 2021 iPad Pro are going to move the needle. For me, and for other people who want to do pro things. So one thing that keeps getting discussed is ramping up the 120 hertz ProMotion display to be an OLED display, or short of that, maybe a mini LED display with brighter brights and deeper blacks. It's better for HDR. And I would say, you know what? Yeah, I mean, that would be nice to have for sure, but that's just a better version of what we've already had. So what I would prefer, actually, more than that, would probably be, and a lot of people, real external display support. That's what so many people are craving, the ability to plug in to a nice monitor and not have black bars. Okay, so you're looking at a picture of the M1 processor here that recently came to the Mac lineup. And there's a rumor that we're gonna get a better processor. It's just like, of course, we're gonna get a processor spec bump this year, no doubt. But more power and more speed, just for the sake of more power and more speed, doesn't really move the needle for me, and I think for a lot of other pro people. Unless, perhaps, it brings the ability to run some desktop class apps. I'm talking about things like Final Cut Pro or Logic Pro or anything in that vein. That would be a whole nother story. And I'm just gonna briefly let you guys know why that matters for somebody like me. I'm a video editor. LumaFusion is available on the iPad. It's pretty powerful. It does a lot, but as somebody who makes a living creating video content, it's missing some basic things. Things like a stabilization for your clips. You gotta go dip into another app to stabilize footage and then come back in. It's just not a great workflow. That's just one example. A second example would be more obscure things like plugins, that I can't use on LumaFusion, things like optical stabilization that I can't use things that your average consumer is not going to need to dig into, but on the pro level, you just can't live without it. There's a rumor that we're going to see a new Apple Pencil. Okay, I mean, there's nothing really wrong with this Apple Pencil V2, except maybe it's a little too easy to knock off the top here or something if you're sticking it into a bag. But I just really don't have much to complain about with the Apple Pencil right now. So I don't even care about that rumor. Unless Apple comes out with something that no one's even thought of and blows my mind. I hope that they do. Another big rumor is just 5G, just wireless connectivity that's a little bit faster. We all know how that went over with the iPhone 12 lineup. I just don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. All right, that's it for this video. Something kind of different, something fun. Don't forget you guys can be checking out Apple Hype. That's the daily thing that I'm curating. I'm not even gonna tell you about it. Just hit the link down below and be surprised and delighted. Also, the Daily Tech After Party is coming back very soon. I'm gonna record one tomorrow, which may be today by the time you're watching this. So thanks for checking this out. Leave me your comments. Let me know what you think about everything that was discussed here, and I'll catch you in the next video. Later.